I'm Heather Ferguson, and you have found a Sonar Moment. The Sonar Moment, a monthly interview with CEOs from the Pacific Northwest. We're here in the beautiful Alex Goulden Hall in Victoria, Canada, and today I'll be speaking with Robert Haydock, President, AML Oceanographic. Robert, welcome.
Thank you. Thank
you.
you.
Now, I know all of you are going to be very jealous, but this man took a year off immediately after he bought the company, and we're going to talk about that, but a little later in the interview. So AML Oceanographic has been in business for about 30 years, but you were telling me that your first big contract came from the US Navy.
Yeah, for this technology specifically, we'd been in business since 1974,
yeah.
And we're operating for 15, 16 years, providing more traditional technologies. And then the US Navy came along and said, listen, we need to be able to determine the speed of sound through water at a level of precision that isn't currently available on the market. Yeah. Can you help us?
Yeah.
And so we walked away and worked on taking the existing technologies to a new level by designing this kind of sensor here, this
yeah.
time of flight sound velocity sensor, which didn't exist in those days.
And these are sensors too, right?
Those are as well. That's a temperature sensor.
That's
that you're
a temperature
holding.
one. And what's this one?
And that's pressure. So that would
that's
measure
a pressure
depth.
sensor.
Yeah.
So
what's unusual about us is the fact that all of these sensors are exchangeable from the instrumentation that they're put on.
Yeah. So you can do that in the field.
Yeah, exactly,
yeah.
exactly, and that makes instrument usage much simpler, much easier.
This is really interesting because when we talked, you said that the product differentiation in this, which is really quite a niche industry,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
That product differentiation for a long time was about accuracy, was about being
yeah.
more and more accurate.
Yeah.
And then you got as accurate as you could possibly get.
Yeah.
How did you differentiate?
Well, one of the interesting things that I've learned over my career in business is that a complaint is actually a request.
Yeah.
I think when we hear complaints, we need to kind of go, somebody's asking for something here.
Yeah.
And in the 2002, 2003, 2004, we were getting a lot of complaints from our customers around the difficulty of taking these sensors out into the field and having to return them to the factory for annual servicing, for annual calibration.
You better just back up a bit and just let people know how that actually worked. These sensors were big things that were...
Yeah, so until the advent of these kinds of exchangeable sensors, an instrument would be something of that size. Mm-hmm. And so to ship something of that size back and forth from here to Singapore was a very costly affair. A lot of downtime for the instrument, a lot of transportation logistics costs. A lot of customer complaints, i.e. requests, for couldn't this process be easier? Does it have to be this costly? Yeah. Does it have to take this long? And we thought, well, maybe if we disconnected the sensor from the instrument so that people could simply ship a small little piece in a FedEx package, perhaps that would ease the maintenance and recalibration pain. And it did.
And then you were able to say, well, if you can switch things out, then maybe you can actually do something in the field that works for them.
Yeah,
right?
so the original intent was to ease that recalibration pain, address the complaint with the request, if you will, for easier recalibration. We launched that, and then we realized, hold on, now we have a completely modular instrument. So whereas in the past people might have to buy two different instruments for two different applications, with this solution they were able to buy one instrument and simply reconfigure the instrument for whatever they were doing on the day.
You talked to me a lot about game changers. Mm-hmm. Tell me what it is you're looking for. What do you define as a game changer?
Great question. Well, let me take that back to the context of AML. We're a small Canadian company. We're 25 people. We compete against some pretty large, well-established international organizations in the UK, in the United States. We realize that if we want to grow in an accelerated manner, we can't do so simply by doing what our competitors do, but a little bit better. We fundamentally have to change the rules of the game. So a game changer for us are things like exchangeable sensors when nobody else can do that. The ability to run embedded applications on our logger boards when nobody else can do that. Looking for new avenues into dramatically changing the user experience, the customer experience for the better.
you're saying to me that this is a game changer for the industry. So tell me about the process that led to that.
Yeah, so it's that terrific marriage of marketing and technical know-how. It comes from the request, the complaint.
Yeah, the complaint.
That says, we don't like this, and then, for example, me turning around to the technical team and saying, this is how we could solve that.
Yeah.
This is what we could do. And the technical team comes back and says, no, there's no way we can do that. That's impossible. We'll never get to that. It would have to be something like this. And me saying, no, this is we have to find an avenue to get to this, or a proxy for that same thing. Something similar, maybe not exactly there, but something moving in the avenue towards that desired outcome. And so a lot of back and forth, and a lot of time. Time is a critical ingredient, because again, this great team of technical guys often will go away and they'll start by saying it's not possible. And then you can just see the wheels turning over time, and then suddenly I'll get a text at midnight one night. I think I know how. I think I know how to do it. And then it'll begin to roll out from there.
Yeah.
And invariably we don't get as far as we want in that initial cut, but we get the wheels turning and moving, and pretty soon you build up some momentum.
Yeah.
And before you know it, version 2 or version 3, you're where you wanted to be.
But there's a lot of back and forth, isn't
Oh,
there?
yeah.
A lot of really honest conversations going on.
Yeah, and that's key, right? The honesty and the ability to help each other by saying, I can see what you can't see. Somebody once painted an analogy for me that said, as we sit at the table, you have 2 blind spots that I can see, and I have 2 blind spots that you can see. And the only way to see the full table, the market, the technology, whatever we want to call the table, is to have multiple sets of eyes looking at the table.
Yeah.
And so the ability to communicate and challenge each other and say, well, why? How come? Why can't we? Why shouldn't we? What would have, rather than getting defensive and shutting down.
So you started, I think I'd mentioned, you started with the company in 2002.
Yeah.
In 2008, was it?
Yes.
The owner of the company passed away.
He did, yeah.
And you bought the company.
I did, yeah.
And then you went away for a year.
I think the recognition that you only get to roll the dice once. I mean, career is an important part of my life, and it's an important part of my wife's life. And but we have other components to our life, and we didn't want to get to a place where our kids were 20 and no longer immediately part of our world, and more difficult to spend time with them because of their own interests and their own activities. We saw an opportunity when our kids were 10 and 8, which is the ages that they were when we traveled for a year, where selfishly they got to be hours and hours alone for an entire year.
Yeah.
And what a fantastic family experience it was. I mean, just a terrific amount of bonding. Because you are together 24/7 for 365 days.
Yeah.
And it creates its challenges, but man, does it create its rewards.
And you were able to stay in touch with the company, weren't you?
Yeah. We had, I had known for some time that I was going to be doing this, whether the company was my own or not.
Yeah.
We had 4 years of preparation in terms of putting in place the right systems and procedures. I was able to dial in every day and look at key numbers and key metrics, things like that. All of which made it easier, but again, it still it's dependent upon that team.
Yeah.
The team that was there to kind of make things continue to flow.
So tell me, benefit personally is?
A unforgettable experience with my family, and a level of bonding with my children and my wife that is irreplaceable, I think.
And benefit for the company?
I think that's where clarity is important, right? I think it's important walking into an experience like that to know what it is you're trying to achieve. And I walked in knowing that it probably wasn't the best thing for the company, right? The best thing for the company was for me to stay and to be focused on the company. But I still had to do it, right? And I think that's fine as long as you walk in knowing there is going to be a cost to this, right? Everything has its cost, and we're going to see a cost in terms of decelerated growth or employee turnover or frustration or lack of implementation of the strategy, whatever it might be. Is that cost in balance with the benefit, and for me it most definitely was. Benefit for the company, I don't know, I could try to say things like the independence of the employees and their ability to operate without me. I think lots of growth there. The push for the development of procedures and processes, given the fact that I wasn't there to make decisions all the time. All those were good things, but at the end of the day, I think probably a year away slowed us down a bit.
They heard it here first. If one of your employees came to you and said, I need to take a year off with my family, what would you say?
Oh, I'd have to say yes. I mean, for two reasons. One is clearly what's good for the goose has to be good for the gander. And I don't think you can operate a business without having that kind of a philosophy in place. I mean, unfairness or lack of balance destroys things in the end, sooner or later. So that would be one reason.
Okay.
The other more important reason would be what a great opportunity for growth and for that person, and knowing that that's going to come back and trickle back into my organization one way or another.
Robert, I can't thank you enough for coming. That's such a refreshing and interesting perspective. Thank you again.
My pleasure. Thank you.